Hey everyone, welcome to today's explainer. Look, if you're a serious UPSC aspirant, you already know the drill. Connecting the daily news to your static syllabus is literally the whole game. So today, we're diving straight into a high-speed, hyper-focused breakdown of the May 12, 2026 edition of the Hindu. We're cutting out all the fluff. This is just the pure, high-yield analysis you absolutely need to crush your GS papers. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's our structured roadmap for today. We're moving strictly by themes to save time and connect the dots across your papers. We'll hit geopolitics and energy security, polity and governance dynamics, welfare, youth and society, and environment and emerging tech. Then we'll practice some mains frameworks and finish up with a rapid-fire revision.
Let's start with Section 1, Geopolitics and Energy Security, Global to Local Impacts.
So, let's start with the macro view for GS papers 2 and 3. This brilliantly shows how international conflicts thousands of miles away hit us right at home. It's the perfect static-to-current linkage. The US-Iran standoff isn't just some distant international relations issue, it's a direct domestic economic threat. Step 1. The Strait of Hormuz choke point gets threatened. Step 2. That creates a massive supply strain because, as you know from your static syllabus, India imports about 85% of its crude oil. And Step 3. The immediate economic fallout. Our oil marketing companies are taking a massive hit, absorbing losses of around 1,000 crore rupees every single day just to keep domestic prices stable for us.
Now, you definitely want to watch out for this prelims trap. Right now, the government states that India holds 60 days of crude oil in commercial rolling stock. But do not confuse that commercial inventory with our actual Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR. Our SPR capacity, which is spread across Visakhapatnam, Mangaluru, and Padur, is actually only about 5.33 million metric tons. They are two totally different mechanisms for energy security, so make sure you keep them separated in your head.
Let's group a few other major global events together to see the broader picture of India's strategic autonomy. First up, we have the Trump-Xi summit, focusing heavily on AI's semiconductors in Taiwan, which of course ties right back into the One China policy. Second, that US-Iran standoff we just talked about? Well, it has 13 Indian ships currently stuck at Hormuz. Yet, at the exact same time, we're hosting the Iranian foreign minister in Delhi for BRICS. And third, we are aggressively pushing our Act East policy with Vietnam. We've elevated ties, set a massive $25 billion trade target by 2030, and we're even discussing the transfer of the BrahMos missile system. It's honestly a masterclass in multi-vector diplomacy.
Moving on to Section 2, Polity and Governance Dynamics, Constitutional Updates.
Let's look at how macro events are testing our foundational constitutional structures at home. The crucial issue here is the Supreme Court examining those massive electoral roll deletions in West Bengal. Check out the flow here. The static rule is that Article 324 and the Representation of the People Act of 1950 govern our electoral rolls. The current event? A staggering 91 lakh voters were removed during the summary revision. So the core constitutional question the court is testing right now is whether sudden deletions of this sheer magnitude violate the fundamental right to universal adult suffrage guaranteed under Article 326.
We've got a couple of really quick high-yield static connects here too. First, with the whole AIDMK legislature party dispute, you've got to remember the anti-defection law under the 10th schedule. Remember, the 91st Amendment deleted the split provision. So today, a party can merge if they have 2/3 support, but they absolutely cannot just split to escape disqualification. And thanks to the Kahoto Holohan case, the Speaker's decision is always subject to judicial review. Oh, and for your ethics and polity papers, the anniversary of the Magna Carta, sealed way back in 1215, is in the news. Never forget its historical impact. It basically anticipated the rule of law, due process, and put checks on arbitrary executive power.
All right, let's hit Section 3, Welfare, Youth, and Society, Demographics and Policies.
Shifting our focus to on-the-ground impacts for GS Papers 1 and 2, this is arguably the single most important domestic policy update of the year. Starting July 1st, MGN-Riga is being repealed and replaced by the VBG-Ramsay Act. Guys, this is a massive paradigm shift. We are moving away from MGN-Riga's rights-based, justiciable framework that guaranteed 100 days of work straight into a budget normative system. Now, the new law does increase the guarantee to 125 days, but it completely changes the funding model to a 60-40 center-state cost-sharing split. This is going to fundamentally alter fiscal federalism and social protection across rural India.
These next 3 points highlight some absolutely critical GS2 social issues. First, look at this glaring demographic gap. 72% of our youth aspire to graduate, yet 40% are dropping out of education early. Usually it's boys leaving for work and girls leaving due to marriage. Second is the silent pandemic of physical inactivity. The WHO notes 5 million global deaths a year from this. And here in India, non-communicable diseases are now causing a whopping 63% of all deaths. Finally, we're seeing ongoing propriety issues in sports governance. The Wrestling Federation of India, sending a show-cause notice to Vinesh Phogat, raises some serious red flags, especially since NADA and WADA are the actual competent authorities for doping issues, not the WFI.
Next up, Section 4, Environment and Emerging Tech, Urban Governance Rules.
Let's dive into some modern regulatory challenges. Watch for the underlying themes in these updates. First, we have Delhi's super aggressive push for EV infrastructure, aiming for electric-only three-wheelers by Jan 2027 and two-wheelers by April 2028. Second, the new solid waste management rules of 2026. While they push for a circular economy, critics are arguing they are way too centralized. They treat local gram panchayats like miniature municipalities, which completely violates the 74th Amendment's subsidiarity principle. And third, Apple's $250 million settlement over Series AI marketing. This really highlights the urgent global need for AI consumer protection, which is deeply relevant to how India navigates our own DPDP Act.
Okay, I've got another classic prelims trap for you regarding environmental regulations. Under the noise pollution rules of 2000, the residential night limit is exactly 45 decibels. You need to memorize that exact number. It's highly relevant right now because recent data shows that over 80% of our monitoring stations across major metros are actively breaching this basic statutory limit.
Let's transition to Section 5, Mains Practice Frameworks, structuring your answers.
Now, knowing the facts is really only half the battle, right? Let's put this knowledge to the test. Here's a hard difficulty GS3 question straight from today's news. India's energy security has been severely tested by the West Asia conflict. Analyze vulnerabilities and suggest a roadmap. This forces you to connect global geopolitics directly to domestic economic stability. So how do we actually structure this? Your framework needs to hit these exact points. Start off with the stark reality of our 85% crude import dependence as your core vulnerability. Then, for the geopolitical angle, bring in the Strait of Hormuz choke point and contrast it with our very limited 5.33 MMT strategic petroleum reserve capacity. Finally, wrap it up with a forward-looking roadmap. Talk about diversifying sources, expanding the SPR, and heavily accelerating our transition to renewables, green hydrogen, and EVs. Let's look at a GS2 question now. Replacement of MGNREGA with VBG-ROM-G marks a shift from rights-based welfare to budget normative welfare. Evaluate. Notice how this asks you to evaluate a fundamental shift in India's welfare philosophy. The keyword evaluate means you have to weigh both sides of this massive policy transition. To score high here, you've got to balance the nuances. You must discuss how shifting away from a rights-based model weakens the justicial entitlement for our most vulnerable workers. But you also have to address the federalism impact. That new 60-40 cost share significantly raises the fiscal burden on the states. For your way forward, pragmatically suggest retaining a rights-based safety net while utilizing the new digital delivery and social audit mechanisms of the Act to maintain fiscal prudence. Finally, Section 6, Rapid-Fire Revision, High-Yield Facts. Time for some ruthless efficiency to lock in today's explainer. Screen grab this table if you need to. You want to sprinkle these exact high-yield data points into your GS2 and GS3 answers. Remember, 60 days of commercial crude inventory versus the 5.33 MMT of strategic petroleum reserves. Keep the LRS remittance limit of $2.5 million a year in mind, and absolutely memorize those new welfare metrics. 125 days of employment under the new Act with that crucial 60-40 center-state cost split. Same goes for these secondary targets, from our $25 billion trade target with Vietnam to those 91 lakh voter deletions in Bengal sparking massive constitutional debates. Commit that 45 decibel residential night noise limit directly to memory, note Delhi's 2027 EV timeline, and quote those 5 million global deaths from physical inactivity when you're writing health and society answers. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from today's sources to ponder for your essays. A nation that cannot power its present cannot build its future. India's energy transition is not a choice, but a compulsion. As global conflicts constantly expose our deep import vulnerabilities, how fast can India truly transition its energy grid to secure its future? Think about that as you write your essays this week. Keep revising, stay focused, and use these frameworks to build a rock-solid foundation. We'll see you in the next explainer. If you're ready to really practice all 8 mains questions from today's news, and you want to get your hands on Prelims MCQs and detailed notes, go ahead and download the complete PDF. Just scan the QR code on your screen or use the link in the description to join our Telegram channel. Keep up the amazing work, stay consistent, and I will see you in the next explainer.